Hi, I'm Matt Mulvaney from Explorer. In this video I'm going to show you how to make REST calls to ORDS using Apex. So we're going to show you using post and get commands, and also using feeds, image handlers, and making extensive use of the JSON package, which was new in Apex 5. In this demo application, I'm going to demonstrate several different examples over this left-hand side menu here, which will demonstrate calling REST web services on ORDS, Oracle REST Data Services, ORDS, and these web services are going to set and get values. So in this first example, the first example I call demo, this is a page built using a gallery application. This is built from following the guide, the Oracle REST Services documentation, and in there's a step-by-step guide to build a gallery application, and I'll show you how this works. So if I press the upload image button, choose an image, let's choose running suit and upload that. That's actually calling a web services, and it sends an image along with the file name, man in suit, and the MIME types to a REST web service using a post command. Now that in turn runs a PL SQL block which inserts this image, the MIME type and the file name into a database table. Let's try that again. Open this up. Let's choose the nurse and upload. So this web service can be located anywhere on the internet. It can be on your own network or across the internet. So I'll show you how this web service is set up. So if I go back to the builder and go to SQL Workshop, then down at the bottom we have RESTful services. So in my example I've got gallery.example, and you can see this here. So we've got a module called gallery.example. It uses a URI prefix called gallery. Now this has a pagination size of 25, so if I request a feed which is getting the values from a select statement, it will give me 25 and a link for more results or the previous page. So in my example, when I upload an image, it runs the post. So here we have a URI template of images. Now this appears here, and we have two modules, a post and a get. So if you post, the source type is PL SQL, and for these examples I'm not using any authentication, so it's just using HTTP. So when it detects a post, it's going to insert into the gallery table these columns, these in parameters as you like, they're bind variables, and it returns an ID into a local variable, and that local variable is assigned to a bind parameter, which is, you can think of it as an out parameter. And you can see these down at the bottom. We've got MIME type. Following the example, we have a name called slug, which is the name of the file name. That's an in parameter. These parameters are set as HTTP headers. So we have two in parameters and we have two out parameters. Okay. The blob itself is sent using a send command, and that's how that is added through there. Okay, let's have a look at the get. So the get version of this, this source type is a feed. So we have other examples. We have query one row, feed, PL SQL and media resource. So the top three are quite similar, although a feed returns a SQL query along with the pagination options as I described earlier. So a next page for more records, or a previous page for the previous set of records. Whereas a media resource will return an image and actually render that as an image so that you can display it. So I have an example here. So under images, now images is a URI template which also has an ID on the end. Now the ID in REST, you use these curly brackets and you can pass an ID name in there. So on the get, this is a media resource. If I pass in an image ID and I want to see that image just using a URL, the media resource will serve up the content type, an image, and render it as an image so you can see that image. And I can prove that here. So if I click on home and hover over, you'll see the link at the bottom ends with gallery images 224. Now that's the ID of the nurse image, whereas the man in the suit is 223. So if I click this one, we're going to this URL 223, and this is a web service get command which serves up a media resource, so it's actually rendering that image. And the same works for the nurse as well. Okay, so two templates, images without an ID and images with an ID. This one is a media resource, this one is a feed, and this one is a post where it inserts the image. Okay, let's edit the application and find out how this works. So this is very JavaScript based, and in the next examples I'll show you how to be more native to Apex. So I have a region called tasks, which has an ID of upload button, where it places the button, and images, which is just a div with I think it's got a static ID of images there. So lots of the code is in the function and global area at the page level. If I open this up, what this is doing is it's going to a gallery URL, and I've used a substitution string here, so I don't have to keep typing in the URL each time. I can have that set in one place. The rest of the code is using the XML HTTP request function. Now if you call in a REST web services and you Google this, you'll find an examples of this piece of code. This is very commonly used across the internet. The rest of the page is using some JavaScript to create the uploader and the dialog box so we can upload an image. Let's scroll down, and now we can get the images. So when we get the images, again we're calling another, there's the same URL, this is in the gallery URL, but we're calling the get procedure, which returns that feed. And then when we get the feed, we return in JSON, and then we can parse the JSON and start to build up this an image list. So this is using these li, the list or the bullet points, and then we have some CSS at page level, which turns that into a gallery. So we have a substantial amount of CSS. So this is all taken from the example from the Oracle documentation. Now we can convert this and make it a bit more native to Apex now. So here we have the same example. In fact, before I do this example, I'm just going to truncate the images, so we start at afresh. So under native, I've built my own Apex file browse item, so we can choose a file. Let's choose this image here, and let's upload the image. So that's done. That's now posted, and we'll find out how that works. Let's just edit the button. So the upload button is going to submit the page, and in here we have a process called upload image. Now the type of this process is called web service. You may be familiar with automatic row fetch or automatic row processing, or even the PL SQL code, but this type is web service. So when you choose web service, you've got to choose your web service operation here. So I've made several available. Now to make these available, you need to go into Share Components. So under Share Components, down at the bottom left hand side are web service references. So in here, these are, and if I click on post image, these are, I consider them as like shortcuts, so you can define the URL that you're going to call here, any encryption, authorization, if it's secure, which operation you're going to call. In this one it's going to be a post to this URL, and any parameters that are involved as well. So the parameter here is a file upload item. I can choose name value pairs or specified body with substitutions, but this one is a file upload. To get the JSON output, so on this button push it, and there I receive JSON. So as being a feed, it gives me the next page to go to, page 1, and then I can see some items in there, and I can see there's my image that I uploaded, smaller JPEG. So this is quite difficult to read in a text area, but you can copy this out and paste it into an online formatter, process there, and it makes it a little bit more readable. So in here I have my navigation or my pagination. So to see more results, go to page 1. For the items, I have one item which consists of 4 parts, so a URI and a reference, which is actually the image, an ID, a title or a file name, and a content type. Now all of these links I can actually use, so if I copy this out and go to new tab, I can paste this in, and that's my navigation. Now it says previous, so if I just go back to that one, let's get that one right. If I go back to there, that's my previous results. I can take any of these images as well, so if I just put that on the end, I'm going to a very specific image now. Okay. Right, so get JSON, this button submits the page, and under processes, let's edit the page. So under processes, I've got call web service. So this chooses, I choose the get images, which returns my feed, and I store the result in a collection. And now this collection doesn't exist, so Apex will create it for me. So WS results is where I want to store the results, and then I have another process which runs on click of that button again. Now this only runs when you've hit the WS process button and when a collection exists, WS results. So when it's created the results in my collection, WS results, it will then naturally call this process here. And this process fetches, I'll pop that up, it fetches the JSON result from clob001, which is a column in my collection, into p2JSON, which is this item here. And when it's done, we don't need the collection anymore, so we can just delete the collection. So that's the next step. We've uploaded an image and we've got the JSON. Now we want to parse the JSON. We want to read that JSON in, and what we want to do is create a new collection based on this information, and we can see our images here in an interactive report. So to do this, in fact I'll upload one more image, the nurse, and we can get the JSON. You see we've got two items in there. Now we're going to parse the JSON. So if I was to edit the parse JSON button, what this does, again, this is going to submit the page, and then under processing we have a process here which is called convert JSON to a report collection. This is a PL SQL type process. If I open this up, this is using the new Apex JSON package, new with Apex 5. So this is going to parse the JSON, which is held in p2JSON, which is this item here. And when it parses it, we'll refer to it as this variable j. So anytime we use the Apex JSON package, we'll refer to j as the object. Next step is we're going to create a collection for the interactive report to base its query on. This will be a collection called JSON. Then we'll loop round as many items as we can find in the items path. So if I paste this in to the formatter again, you'll see how many items we have. So now we have one item there, which is the nurse, and we have another item here, the smaller image. So I would expect this to loop round twice. Each time it loops round, we add a member to the JSON package, to the JSON collection, and in positions 1 we're going to use the apex JSON gets a varchar2 function, and we're going to pass in a path items URI ref, and this is going to return the image path. So again, items URI ref. The next one is going to be items ID, items type, and items content smaller. Items ID, items title, and items content type. The %d meaning the number of times you're going to loop round. Now that takes its values from P0, x being the counter. So the first time we'll put a 1 in there, the second time we'll put a 2 in there, and it's going to return us the information from the JSON. So I've wrapped some HTML around the image, so image source here, and we've got a class to change the size of the image. So let's give it a go. If I parse the JSON now, it's converted that JSON into a collection, and the interactive report has selected columns from the collection and rendered them in the interactive report. If I quickly edit the interactive report, you can see the SQL is quite basic there. So in this next example, we're going to use a different web service. Now this is going to be for adding comments. So we're going to add comments in 3 different ways of calling a web service in ORDS. So we can use a shared component web service reference here. We can call it through JavaScript in this example, or we can call it using a PL/SQL package. So the first example is going to be add WS or add web service. We'll just add a quick example here. Web service example. So we'll add that, and down at the bottom we have a classic report. Now the classic report is based on the table, and this has a template of comments. So with this template we can have 2 letters for the initials, we have the text itself, and we have the user and the date. So let's have a look at the web service. So under SQL Workshop RESTful Services, under comments example, so this is our module, and we have a URI prefix of comments, and then we have one template called comment, and under there we have 2 resource handlers, one for get, which returns the feed, and one called post, which is a PL/SQL source type, and this simply inserts into the comments table these 3 columns, and we'll pass in 2 bind variables, initials and text, with sysdate as the text date. So for our parameters we have 2 HTTP headers. One is called initials, which is bound to the initials bind variable there. The other is called text. So using the same names, bound to the text bind variable there. So on this page, if we edit the button here, this button submits the page. Yep, submits the page, and this calls add. So when I create a web service type of post comment, and again I need to set that up in, let's have a quick look, in web service references. So in here we have get comments, which gets the JSON, passes no parameters in, and then with the one we're using here, post comment, which is a post to the JSON, and then we specify which headers it uses. So in here, name value pairs, and in here initials and text. Let's go back. So if we edit the page, and look at the add, so I've added post command here. As soon as I add that, it knows what the parameters are, so I just set them. So this initials is going to be the first two characters of app user, and the text is going to be p3 text, which is the text box. This one doesn't return any JSON, so I can just leave this one blank. The next example is add.js. So this is a JavaScript example. So if we click that, it runs the JavaScript, it submits the page, and you can see the comment there in the classic report when the page has been redrawn. Let's just quickly edit that button. Right, so this has got a click dynamic action here. When you click the button, add.js, this runs some JavaScript code which does not run on fire on page load, and in there I have again the XML HTTP request function. So this adds the initials and text parameters to the header. I should say in here it appends the data here in a form data. Now this code was generated through a tool called Postman. So Postman is a Chrome application which allows you to test your web service calls. So when you successfully create a project in Postman to call a web service, you can click a generate code button and it will generate the code in many different formats and languages. So one of these being the XHR JavaScript example. So I posted this in. The important thing to look at is the event listener here. So when it reaches ready state 4, which means the final stage of calling the web service, when it's been successfully called, then Apex submit the page so the page can be redrawn. And the final way is a PL/SQL web service call. Use this button here. So that's the third way, and that's been added to the table. So let's look at this. So this again, this is going to submit the page, and in processing we're going to use add PL/SQL. Now in only a few lines of code we're going to call Apex web service make REST request. We're going to call the URL again with that substitution string, and we want the method post. Before we call that post command, we can set up our parameters. So we're going to pick the initials in a name and value pair in the first record of this object, the first two characters of app user, and in the second row we're going to use the next parameter, text, and pass in p3 text. So when you do that, that's posted to the web service. The web service makes a PL/SQL PL/SQL call, and it creates the entries into here. In this next example, we're going to take away some of the code which calls the Apex web service call in PL/SQL, and we're going to put that on the database level. What we're going to do is create a pipelined view on the web service, and we're going to use, instead of triggers, on the view, so we can actually insert into the view, and instead of inserting, it's going to make the web service call. So here is an example. Now here is a form and a report, and I've created this just using the wizards based on this view. So if we edit the page, on our view, on our interactive report, we have one view called comments REST view, and we'll pick all the comments from this view. We have a create button which takes us to page 8. So if we create here, can I add a new comment in? Okay, and we'll create, and that's added a comment into this view here. Let's have a look at that again. So on create, what does the create button do? If we edit the page, we have a process row, an automatic row processing here. I've just disabled that using a condition, and I'm having my own PL SQL process. So I'm going to insert into comments view the 2 columns and the 2 screen items here. So this was built in seconds really, using the form and report wizard. So underneath I'll explain how this view works. So if we click on the source here, now this is my view here, comments rest view as select star from table. This is a table function, and here's my function, get comments table or tab TF. So if we look at that function, this is a pipeline function. So for a pipeline function, all I need to do is create or replace it with the keyword pipelined, and when my rows are ready to be piped out, I just use the pipe row function, pipe row. So this is my pipeline function. First off, I'm going to make a web service call to get the comments data. So this is stored in a CLOB. This section here is for debugging, so we'll skip over that. The next section is something that you've seen earlier in this video blog. So where you parse the output and then you loop through all the items in there. And instead of putting it into a collection, which I did before, I'm going to put them into a row type, and when all the values are in, I'm going to pipe the row. So this select statement here and the table function allows those rows to be converted into a table. So this allows me to select star from the view, and instead of selecting from the database tables directly, it's making that web service call and then parsing the JSON. When I want to insert into the view, I need an instead of trigger. So here's the trigger name. Instead of insert on this view, for each row, make a web service request. So set up the headers as I did before. So the initials is the new initials, so whatever the insert statement is for the new values, put that into the header, the same with the text or the comments, and then make that call to the URL. So comments, comment, and the method of post. So this allows the view to be used quite natively within Apex. So I can use the view in the wizards to create a form, and I can create it in the wizards to create a report. In this last example, I'm going to show you how to send a file or a blob using a web service reference. So here we can choose a file, in this case the man in suit, and if we upload that, this appears in the image gallery. In fact, this is the same image gallery which appears on the first page here. If I edit the page, you'll see how this works. So in the upload button, this again is going to submit the page, and under processing we have a process called upload. Now this runs PL SQL code. So I need to call again the image URL with a post, and my parameters are I have one parameter for the file name and the file name value. Now these file names come from the uploaded file, which is temporarily stored in the Apex application temp files. Now to post a blob, you're unable to do that through the headers or setting the headers with the blob content, although there is an argument here called pBodyBlob on the make rest request function. So using the body, you can send a blob or a file to a web service, and the result it looks quite nice. So in summary, we've started with the demo application. So this was the gallery following the Oracle REST tutorial. This is mostly JavaScript and calling web services directly. Then we went to the native example where we broke this down into several steps. So we uploaded the image using a web service process which used a web service reference which we set up in Share Components. This allows us to upload the image or post the image. Then we can use the other method, the get method, to call the web service where we're going to get some JSON output. Then we can parse that JSON using the Apex JSON package new with Apex 5 to return it into a collection, and then we can have an interactive report selecting from that collection. In the next example, I showed you the 3 ways of calling a web service: through a web service reference, through JavaScript, and through the web service PL/SQL package. I then simplified that by creating a pipelined view, so a pipeline function with a view on the top, which allows us to create a form and report using the wizards, and I use an instead of trigger to allow me to not insert into the view, but instead call a web service whenever an insert DML command is issued. And finally, I showed you how to post a blob content, in this case an image, via the PL/SQL routines. For more information, including our blogs, please visit www.explorer-development.uk.com.